Is it live?
Mhm. I'm
It says
connecting
it's
to the
live.
Facebook group.
Just let me know when it's live. I hope I don't knock that water down.
We're live.
We are.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Hey everyone. Whoever's on right now, I'm sure people will join as as the live goes along. But glad everyone could make it. Um, if you've never been on a live with us before, my name is Ken. This is my partner Ben. Then we got John Ellis on today. Um, Ben and I own Lead Bear, and we're the ones who run the group. In case anybody isn't aware of that, um, we are a marketing agency, and we specifically run ads for Facebook and Google, and then we also do local SEO. And so obviously we handle the marketing side of things, but for a while we've been thinking, because I mean, me personally, I have a sales background, been in sales for a long time, but I actually never worked in the HVAC industry. So we were thinking about, we're like, how do we connect these two dots? You have marketing, you have sales. So it got us to thinking, how do we close that gap and offer the whole package for anybody who's in the group, for our clients, whoever? And that's when we got to thinking. We decided to bring somebody on from from the industry, that knows the industry and has a lot of experience and all that. So I reached out to John here, and sorry, I reached out to John and started talking with him. I pitched him the idea that we want to start, a sales training event, and he was super ecstatic to join us, or to jump on with us. So, um, yeah, I know John's process, and it's very simple and it's very straightforward. So it does allow people to be able to close easier, I guess you could say, and they're able to see more success with their customers. It just makes the whole process a lot simpler. So, with all that being said, I'm kind of going to pass it over to John here. He can tell you a little bit more about himself and, yeah, what we're really doing here today.
All right. Well, Kenny, Ben, and everybody on the live, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome.
And and you're probably wondering, well, who the heck is this John Ellis guy? Some of you may know me. So I'm just going to give you like a brief kind of overview on who I am and how I got to where I'm at today. A lot of people talk about their experience in HVAC, and so that it can go both ways. It's like, well, you've been doing this for X amount of years, but you've been doing it wrong. But all that set aside, I've been in this industry for 43 years. I've seen it done a whole bunch of different ways. I've been in the sheet metal workers union. I've been in the operators and engineers union, and I was in the pipe fitters union. And so I got to see how that whole union side of things work. Um, I own my own business in Southern California called SoCal Aerodynamics, but the distinguishing difference between myself and my competition was my vans didn't say SoCal Aerodynamics heating and air conditioning. It said performance contracting. So I got into performance contracting real early in my career to try to do things just a little different with performance in mind. And that journey has taken me many different directions. I got really involved in building science. I got deeply, deeply involved in indoor air quality. In that business, our niche, if you will, was creating clean, healthy environments for people who were severely respiratory compromised. Now, that brought a whole host of clients to me with conditions like COPD, um, lung transplants, immune, oncology, debilitating asthma, Lyme's disease, valley fever. Uh, it's when people come to you with those kind of conditions, the decisions that you help them make, their very life or their quality of life depend on those decisions.
Right.
And so it's been a wonderful experience. And in my practice, I was an air balance technician, I was a HERS rater, I was a quality insulation um, auditor, so I'd go behind the insulation guys. System performance, I could commissioned schools, prisons, hospitals. I would commission commercial kitchen exhausts, and so my experience is very, very diverse. well-rounded, which leads me to where I'm at today. I sold my business in California, and I moved to the mountains of New Mexico. So I live in a cabin up in the mountains. It's a different way of life. But after leaving the industry, I didn't want to really be a contractor anymore. And so I like to say I'm a recovering contractor. It took 13 steps because 12 wasn't enough. But hey, I'm on the other side and I really enjoy what I'm doing. So I have the wonderful pleasure of having my own business doing consulting. It's called Dynamic Air Consulting. And what that is I go into the field, use that time to work with clients that need specifically indoor air quality or environmental type work done. I bring contractors with me. They get to use all my tools. I got a ton of tools. And they go through that whole process of diagnosing, doing building forensics, working our way out of a house, using the data to establish a scope of work, and we present it to the customer. They have to bid that job because I don't know everybody's marketplace. And so, and then I also I use that platform consulting to help do ride-alongs and coaching as well for IAQ sales. Dyken and Amanda Goodman approached me about 6 years ago, said, John, we want to create an IAQ curriculum. I said, I'm absolutely your guy, but I won't stand in front of a group of people like yourselves and try to sell products because that's what everybody else does. And so I said, it has to be the nuts and bolts and science of indoor air quality. And we have to be able to create solutions for people like my clients that I described to you. So it's building science, building forensics, and IAQ from a mechanical point of view. I built it for our industry. One of the other things I get to do, which is really kind of honed some of my sales processes and make me rethink sales, is I'm a coach and field service trainer for a company called the New Flat Rate. And so what that is it's a built for you menu pricing system. And so we are not a pricing company. We are a software and process development company. And so we take your numbers, we look at your books, we look at what you need to be profitable, we build it into our menu, and then we have thousands and thousands of repairs already built in with your margins and your numbers already in there. And it offers 5 options for every single repair, every single service, every single installation option. And so it's a neat process, and it's fully scripted. We use linguistic psychology and verbal packaging, and we'll get into some of that stuff a little bit later. One of the other wonderful things I get to do is I worked with for the last 2 years with a company called Rector Seal Dust Free, and we developed our own MERV 16 residential air filtration, low static drop, surgical grade, 3-year filter life. It is fantastic. We hit the market. It's on sale now, and it's been well received, and it's absolutely wonderful. So that's
Awesome.
just kind of the elevator version. So thanks for humoring me. But this isn't about me. This is about you guys. And so during this live chat, if you got any questions or comments whatsoever,
So I was
type
gonna
them
say,
into the chat, and then Ben or Kenny will address those, and then we'll get those questions answered. Because this isn't me talking at you. This is me trying to give you some of my knowledge, maybe stimulate conversation, stimulate thought, and maybe you'll see things a little different than the way you've been doing them before, or have a different opinion on a couple things. Fair enough?
yeah, I was gonna add too when you were talking about the menu pricing and everything like that. I remember when we talked months and months ago, and I remember you were telling me how the whole process works, and I remember thinking like, wow, if I had this when I was in sales, like it would have been a complete game changer. But again, they'll see how that all works. But yeah, I wish I had it. It would have made
Yeah.
my life
And to
a hell of a
your
lot
point,
easier.
Kenny, I wish I had it when I had my company too, but I didn't. And 43 years, you think I've seen it done a few different ways? And
Right.
trial and error and lots of failures. Oh yeah, and then working for different companies and how they do it, and you pick the best of you cherry pick, get the best of everything. You kind of put it into a pot and mix it up, and you come up with your process.
Yeah.
So it's
Absolutely.
kind of fun. All right, we ready to jump in?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
kind of lay out a little foundation on what we're going to do today. Today's day one, and so we just did some introductions. We're going to kind of get the locomotion going, and we're going to build momentum. And then as we go into day 2, 3, and 4, we're really going to dig in, start to get into the meat and potatoes, and really have it to start make a lot of sense. And I hope you're taking notes, and there'll be some good nuggets that you can get out of it. I want to say one caveat. I am not a sales guru. I do not put myself out there as one of those guys. If you're on social media, you see them. They're out there and they claim to be the end all be all in sales. And I'm telling you right now, sales is not new. And they do the same thing everybody else does. They cherry pick and get the best of all the systems. They try to call it their own, but it's not. I'm not here to claim I'm one of those guys. I'm just a guy who's been in this industry, who has seen it done and done it a whole bunch of ways. And hopefully I've come up with a couple of good processes that can work. So I just wanted to put that out there. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to start off with a little history. We're going to talk about the how, why, and when the sales process starts. We're going to talk about winners and losers, and that'll make sense when we get into it. We're going to talk about the importance of a sales process or processes in general. And then we're going to talk about how we need to have a customer-centric approach. So sales is not something new. It's not revolutionary. We've figured out new ways to do it. But since the beginning of human civilization, there has been some type of sales, but we'll call it bartering or trading of whatever. And then one of the first known records of sales of all things is bartending. And that happened in 6,000 BC. That's 6,000 BC. And then standardized commerce happened in Mesopotamia, and currency started to come into play in 3,000 BC. And then large-scale trade started to happen in Europe and the Middle East in the 15th century. And then fast forward, we started to get into, and then retail shops started to open somewhere about 500 to 300 BC. And so this is not anything that's new. It's different, but it's not new. Sales has been around for a long, long time. Large-scale trade entered into Europe and the Middle East by the 15th century. And then fast forward, we have e-commerce, we've got digital marketing, we've got cryptocurrency that's trading, and people are actually doing stuff like that. Then they got into catalogs. And then finally, we started to get into advanced customer relationships. That's like, what a concept. So you can see there was a shift. And of course, it's been a long road, but we've had thousands of years of evolution in sales. So it's pretty interesting when you look back to the beginning of human civilization, there has been some type of trading or bartering, which can be considered sales. Now we just trade currency for, product, services, and different things. So there are plenty of different approaches out there. And to name a few, we've got the Sandler approach, Airtime 500, Nexstar, Tony Robbins. The list goes on and on and on and on. And although there are great things in all of these, they all, have their goods and bads about it. But and that's when I say, you cherry pick and take the good stuff out of all of it to come up with a process that we've had people go before us at the beginning of human civilization that we can, stand on the shoulders and learn from. So what stands out to mind when we look back and you want to look at some of the most successful sales type companies or approaches, you can't not think about the Fuller Brush guy. And I got a little history about him. Let me bring that up, and it's really quite fascinating. He was established in 1903. He was a door-to-door salesman. He started making high quality brushes in his sister's basement in 1903 in Hartford, Connecticut. There are many studies that have been done that talk about the Fuller Brush approach. And there wasn't that long ago that HVAC companies went door knocking,
Right.
door to
Some
door.
some still do canvas.
And some still do. And I've been seeing recently how they're bringing that back because everything has cycles
Mhm.
and ebb and flow. And everybody's searching for that next shiny object, the next new thing, the next greatest thing that's going to help us get to where we need to go. And they all start off great and then they kind of fall short for many different reasons. But we're coming full circle, and there are companies out there, and they're knocking on doors, and
Mhm.
they're having great success with it. So Fuller Brush, 1903, huge success. The guy made a ton of money, and it was the simplest approach. I've got a good product, and I need to get it to people, so I'm going to knock on the door, and I'm going to have a process to have them hear me out. And he did quite well, very, very successful. So, what are some other ones through the years? Um, Avon. Avon was door to door, and then it evolved. Tupperware was door to door. I remember my mom having Tupperware parties, and they still happen to this day. They've evolved, and I think they're more about drinking wine. But hey, um, another one. I'm old enough to remember the guy going door to door selling encyclopedias. My parents bought a set of encyclopedias. It's Amway was another one. Amway got its roots doing door to door, and
Mhm.
they're huge now. They're a multi-million-dollar company selling cosmetics and whatever else they sell. Here's an interesting thing. When I was a youngster, I was probably 9 or 10. A guy came door to door, and he was selling music lessons. My parents bought into it and bought an accordion, and John learned how to play the accordion
I always actually
from
wanted to learn how to play accordion.
from a door-to-door salesperson. And they had a brick and mortar music studio in California. It's called Larson's Music Studio. And here I go. I got this accordion. I went to learn how to play accordion. It's like, wow. And then I joined a heavy metal accordion band, and then we made it big. So what I want you out of all of that is to see that, you know, if you're new to the trade, sales can be intimidating, but they don't have to. It's basically been around forever, and there's processes that have been built by the people before us, and we can stand on their shoulders and we can learn what the best process is for us and what's comfortable for us and what works for us and how we can increase revenue.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, a lot of people overcomplicate sales. At the end of the day, it's really just there's a need or a want for what we're talking about. It's a need. And you supply them the solution. It's really that simple. And I know obviously there's more that goes along to it, but people think like, oh, I have to use this script and I have to say this thing and I have to beat them down and oh, I have to, write this on the paper to give them two options or whatever. It doesn't have to be that convoluted. Um, but I know there's a lot of bad information out there. And I've been taught a lot of that information over the years. Like you were talking about, you cherry pick the best things that work, and there are going to be some things that work better for other people, but you cherry pick what works, and you have a system and you just follow it, and as long as you go into it thinking, I'm here to help this person, and if they want it, they want it. If not, not like you're going to go in there and twist their arm. It just makes everything a lot simpler. But I just kind of wanted to add that.
Yeah, and some of the things you mentioned are important. They're good and bad, but not necessarily bad in unto themselves. It's how they're used. I think where we start to go off the rails a little bit, and also the importance of sales is without sales we don't have a company,
Right.
right? And I want to make and I teach this in my class. I talk about I go in pretty extensively on the selling component of
Mhm.
IAQ. And what I say is we have to have the right motive behind
Right.
sales.
Right.
And and what comes to mind, you always think of the sleazy used car salesman, that looks like he hasn't slept for a week, and it smells like booze. But not that we're like that. I'm just saying that's the mental image we have, and so we have to understand that, and I like to bring it back to spiritual principles. And so the Bible doesn't say money is the root to all evil. It doesn't say that, although it gets misread like that. It says the worship of
Right.
money
Right.
is the root to all evil.
Mammon.
And so we're not to worship money, but I will say this in all honesty: money is the fuel that fuels the engine that is our company. If
Sure.
you don't put fuel in the engine doesn't run. You don't have the lights on, you don't have a shop, you don't have cars, you don't have uniforms, you don't have paid vacations, you don't have the perks, medical and dental, you don't have Christmas bonuses, all that stuff comes with it. So revenue or money is the fuel that fuels the engine that is our company. And
Yeah,
so it's
cash flow is
important.
king.
But some people, for whatever reasons, and I'm not trying to browbeat anybody, put that money way too and much emphasis above being a solutions person or being customer centric, which we're going to get into a little later. So if we want to stay grounded in this process, and we can't just be, now there are plenty of companies out there that have leaderboards and it's all about the revenue. And it's funny, I hear guys, it's like, yeah, I did 1.4 million dollars in sales last year. I'm like, dude, that is awesome. I sold one job for 1.4 million.
Right.
Really? Or hey, this quarter I did 300,000 in revenue. Oh, that's awesome. I sold one job that was 300,000 or 400,000 or 500,000. One job. And so it's all about keeping it in perspective. Now, to sell a job for 1.4 million dollars is a whole different ball game than trying to sell a customer a service, a maintenance agreement, or a new piece of equipment. I mean, that is high pressure. I had to go in front of a panel of 5 different people and stand up and tell them why I thought that I deserved them to put $1.4 million in my bank account and not my competitor. And by the way, my competitor was United Technologies. Do we know who that is?
I'm not aware.
Carrier.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I had to stand in front of a panel and explain to them why I thought that I deserved that $1.4 million more than Carrier or the other people that were in the run. And they awarded me the job. So that takes a certain amount of confidence, it takes a certain amount of knowledge, and that's a whole different level of sales that most of our audience probably won't see. But just to kind of put things in perspective, when I hear a lot of guys touting numbers and everything, well, that's great. But did you fix anything? Did you sell something to that little lady on a fixed income that didn't need it, but you were all about the numbers? I mean, there's got to be some a moral compass involved. But I don't want to get lost in that. So I just wanted to make sure that we understood about the money part. That it is the fuel that fuels the engine. That is our machine, our business. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to add too, if you guys have any questions, please ask in the comments. Ben will read them out.
All right. So
For anyone who's just joining.
I have notes in my phone too that I need to. So the how, when, and why. So my question to you is, when does the sales process start? Just kind of an open-ended question. Why do we need a sales process? And then how do we initiate the sales process? If you're on a service call, you don't walk in and immediately say, "Hey, you know what? I think you need a new unit. Would you like to know how much that is?" Or you haven't even looked at it. It's like, "Hey, you know what? I got this great deal on IAQ stuff. We'll talk about that later." Uh, you want to be able to go in and know when that sales process needs to start. Now, in a roundabout way, that sales process starts when they call the company, because they called your company and are asking you, that company, for a service. They already know they have to pay for that service. They're not calling up and saying, "Hey, you guys running free service today? I'd like to get in on that," right? They're not
Right.
doing that. And so actually that sales process kind of started when that customer calls your company. They have a pain. Their system is broke. They need it fixed. They called you to do it. They know it's going to cost them something. They're going to exchange currency for your service
Right.
and probably products. And so understanding that, we're getting started when that phone rings. And then so that makes it important that the CSR is involved in that process, and they handle that, because they're going to be handing it off to the technician. So it's not just the technician that has to be able to navigate this whole thing. And we're going to talk about building processes a little bit later, but that's kind of where it starts. But knowing when to really start talking about that is really important. Why do we need a sales process? Well, because we know we need to receive currency for the services and products we're about to render. So we know we need to get paid that. We know that we need to make a certain amount of money for our truck to be profitable. We need the company to be profitable. So we pretty much understand the why we need sales. So the big question is, we know when, we know why, is the how. And so that's where some training, some knowledge, some experience, some practice, that's where that comes in. And so you don't start being salesy to somebody when you walk in the door. As a matter of fact, some people do. So also not being what I like to call bullish or pushy, or not trying to sell something to somebody they don't need just to pad the ticket. That's not part of the how. So when we look at how we do it, we're going to start breaking that down as we go further into what we're doing. But there's a whole list of how, and the how is tied to directly to what. What are we trying to sell will influence how we try to sell it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So when does that process start? Well, it starts from the very beginning. We all know why we need sales, and then how do we initiate the sales is going to be part of some of the stuff that we'll be unpacking in the next 3 days. Yeah, we got 3 more coming after this. All right. And so my next topic is winners and losers. And so I took some notes in my phone.
Before that, I also got a question from Zoltan.
Yeah.
He asked, I get my contractor's license next month. Can I qualify more than one business with it?
Okay. That is totally going to be per your state, per your county, per your city. You obviously need a city license. You'll probably need a state license. Some places like Texas, you need a state and a county and a city depending on where you're going. In California, I needed a LA County and I needed LA City. And then when I went out, I needed a, I was doing work in a lot of cities. I go to Santa Monica. Oh, I need to get a business license there because I'm doing work there. I go to Culver City. Oh, now I need another one. So it's going to be very specific to your state and to your city and to your county.
Yeah, Florida Broward County.
Pardon me?
Florida Broward County.
Yeah, I don't know. I live in New Mexico, so I don't know how to answer that question. But there's plenty of stuff out there. A quick Google search will tell you, or walk into your city office, and they'll be able to lay that all out for you. Cool. I am finding my notes. Okay, we talk about winners and losers. And what I mean by that is not like a sports team and the team with the most amount of points wins, or the guy who sells the most wins. When we look at sales, winners and losers can be divided up into two categories. And when I say losers, that's a pretty harsh word. But when we talk about losers, I talk about those who aren't able to seize an opportunity, aren't able to identify an opportunity, aren't able to communicate correctly or properly with a customer, don't have the skill set to properly diagnose. I mean, we're talking about sales, but I want to make one thing clear. We need to be good technicians. We need to be good diagnosticians. We need to be problem solvers. And when we solve a problem, that means we've come up with a solution. All that has to happen before sales. The sales will come. And,
Right.
a lot of companies already have like price books and different things. But first and foremost, I am all in on technical training before anything, before any sales. But that just happens to be what we're doing today. So being able to properly diagnose. So when we talk about winners, so people who have the confidence to properly diagnose, that they have that winning attitude, someone who knows how to communicate with the customer, and when a customer or someone you're talking to gets you, and you get that kind of that winning feeling. But I think the most thing about it is we can look at winners and losers also from the customer's point of view. And we start to bring in different sales approaches and how they use strong arm tactics, and how they look at the experience. When a customer has buyer's remorse, they really feel like they're a loser. Or
Right.
do they feel like they had no other choice and they were kind of forced into that? Well, they feel like they've lost. When they feel like they've got the best experience ever and the technician was spot on and and they feel great, well, they feel like they've won. They will feel like that too about, when I say buyer's remorse, one that's attached directly to the amount of money that they paid for the service, but it's also the end result. If they feel like, hey, I just spent a good amount of money with this technician or this company, I really feel like I got my money's worth. That is winning. And so we have to look at the whole process from a winning point of view. If the customer is happy, they feel like they got their money's worth, they feel like they've kind of won the day, well, then you've won the day too, because you're going to have a repeat customer. You made the money you had to, and you felt like you put your best foot forward and did the best service that you can. And so we look at winners and losers a couple different ways, and I don't mean it to be derogatory, but we have to understand that both sides of this relationship, if you will, because when you do go into a customer's house, you're entering into a relationship. It's a business relationship, however
Right.
short or long that may be, but there's going to be winners and losers. I think that both parties can be winners, and that is probably the goal we should strive for. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So moving forward, let's talk about the importance of the process, not just the sales process. So we are a process driven industry. All the home services, I don't care what business you're in. I don't care what kind of commodities you're dealing with. I don't care if you're retail, wholesale, um, skilled trade. It doesn't matter. There's a process for everything. But for today, we're talking about the skilled trade. So there's a process on how you advertise. There's a process on how you handle leads.
Mhm.
There's a process on how the CSR answers the phone. There's a process on how you dispatch the right technician to the right job. There's a process on how you stock the truck. There's a process how you do maintenance on the truck. There's a process on how you do sale. There's a process of maintenance. There's a process for an installation, commissioning. There's a process for a service call. There's a process for absolutely everything. And I don't
Everything.
care who you talk to, there can't be enough emphasis put on how important a process is.
100%.
100%
I'm
agree.
pretty sure that Ben and Kenny there at Lead Bear have processes in place on how you
100%.
do everything.
100%.
Everything
SOPs.
is like an assembly line.
Yeah.
Right. And so processes can vary from technician to technician or from company to company and from industry to industry, but there has to be a process. Your process could be something very simple or it can be very involved and very, what's the word, complicated. Not complicated in the sense that it's hard to do, but just commissioning, let's say installing a piece of equipment brand new, all the ductwork, everything, you name it, that's pretty complicated. And so that process has to click, click, click. This is how we do it. This is the sequence how it's done. If it isn't, then something gets missed. Then we've got problems. So it can be a simple process, or it can be complicated. Excuse me. I hope I'm muting when I do that.
You are. I do it
Yes.
too.
So, and we'll get we'll get more into this later on because on day 3 we're going to go through a service call life cycle, and then we're also going to go through a maintenance life cycle. I am so sorry. I got a little tickle in my throat at the worst
That's okay.
time.
You're good. That's why
So
I got my water here.
we need to build out processes. But what good is a process if we don't share it with the team? It's like, man, I got these great processes, but nobody else knows what they
Right.
are.
Right.
They have to be understood and followed by everyone.
A process is only as good as the person following it. So making that process
Hmm.
known to the team, to everybody involved, and what their role in that process. Now, you can have a process for each different team member, even trying to accomplish one task. I used to do new construction back in the 80s during the housing boom. And it was, we do 300 or 400 houses at a time. We do the models, and then we start and we go up the street, down around the corner, go up the next street. People are moving in the first houses. And so it's high production. And so we had a process. And if you didn't follow that process and you started to get behind in production, the other trades would just steamroll right over you. And then you're really scrambling. And so our process was, hey, we'd go in, the job was already laid out. We'd have to make a materials list. Materials were delivered. First step of the process is go in and mark everything out. And then the second part of the process would be go in and get a chainsaw, yeah, and cut all the trusses and different things that you need, or the plates, not the trusses, the plates. Get everything ready, and then assemble the boots and put them up, and plate strap them, and then run the thermostat wire, and then stub the vent pipe out, and then run the ductwork, and then on and on and on, and then we'd be done with rough. And so there was so many steps in that process. If everybody didn't understand what those steps were and got out of a sequence or whatever, you run into trouble. And that's kind
Yeah.
of a broad explanation. But so the important to have a process, and the importance of everybody understanding what that process is. Here's something cool. If you don't have processes in your business right now, one of the very cool things to do, rather than and I've experienced this firsthand. It's like, hey, I got a lot of great ideas. I'm the boss. I'm the president. I'm the company owner, and so what I say is golden. And so I put these processes out, and I want my employees to do that. And it's like it wasn't working, but I didn't see it, and I thought, man, I came up with it. It's got to be good. And so there was some glitches going on, and finally my guy came to me. He's like, John, we need to do this a little different. And here's the reason why. And so I put my pride to the side and I listened. I was like, man, you know what? You are absolutely right. I rewrote the process. You want to circumvent all that, involve your team in writing the process with you, because it's not you dictating to them, what they need to do. It's not dad telling the kids to clean their room every stinking day, right? It's letting them have skin in the game, let them be part of the process. Hey, we wrote this together, and then when it's implemented, it just goes a lot better. They feel like they had a say in it. And so it takes a little bit of just sitting down. It's like, hey, okay, here's what we need to do. Let's come up with a process. And so that goes a long, long way. So processes in absolutely everything, and sales is no different. And so when we talk about sales, and we'll go into this a little more, and I know I keep saying this, but I have stuff to take deeper dives in. But sales and the process of sales is about communication, right? We need to communicate well with the customer. And once we communicate and we build trust and we build confidence, then that process becomes easier. But the number one thing in sales is the process is communication. And so I took some other notes, and we talk about what kind of sales approaches or processes do we need. And so one I have, and it's the first one, and I think is most important, is customer centric approach. And I do have a category for this, and we're going to dive into that a little more as I get through these. And so winners prioritize understanding the customer's needs, pain points, and goals, and they listen more than they speak.
1000%.
Wow. So this takes me to a story, and I tell this story in my class. And this totally nails down communication and listening more than you speak. So I was working with a company in Port Huron, Michigan. I'm spending the week with them. I've done my training with them. They are users of the new flat rate, and they're implementing a IAQ division within their company. And so they're building this up, and they got a call, and it was pretty high profile from a gentleman who was having a real rough time in his own house. And so they did some initial testing, and they said, "Hey, John, perfect timing. You're coming out next week. Can we go and see what's going on at this house?" I said, "Hey, absolutely, good timing." And so part of the process and part of the communication of working with clients like this is send them a questionnaire so they can answer some basic questions about the house, about themselves, different things, so we can get a better understanding of what we're walking into and not going blind. And so they're like, yeah, we did that. It's like, okay, so we go over there, we meet We meet the husband and the wife, and so we sit down at the kitchen table, and it's the two gentlemen, myself and the Mister. He's like, yeah, um, he was in oil refinery business. He's been subjected to a lot of different things.
Mhm.
His respiratory system is what we call compromised, and so he says, yeah, I feel terrible, and I wheeze and I cough and I sneeze when I'm at home. I go for a walk and I feel better. Okay, so we're going through things and we're talking about different things and when did it happen and all the stuff that we need to talk about that was actually on the questionnaire. In the room next to us in like a little den was the wife. And she raises her hand and she says, does anybody want to know how I feel? And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so, yes, ma'am, come on in. And she said, I know my husband's not feeling well. And at first, I thought he was a little cuckoo because I couldn't feel it. But now I really do understand that there's something going on with him. But she goes, you know what? I sing in the choir at church. And lately, I haven't been able to sing. And I'm having problems in my throat as well. And
Mhm.
so I know there's something going on. So this is someone who just wanted to be heard.
Right.
And so we need to understand that people want to be heard. And as technicians, and I am 100% guilty of this, right? I am not calling the kettle black. I get so excited with all the knowledge, expertise, and experience, especially in the building science and different things that I go in and I want to lead the conversation and I want to back the truck of knowledge up and dump it on them. And then it's like, oh, do you have anything to say?
Right.
People want to be heard. We need to listen more than we speak. So that's a story, and it hit hard. So um, long story short is they had vermiculite in the ceiling as insulation. It was
What's
used
the
a lot.
what's vermiculite? I've never heard of that.
Vermiculite is a mineral, and
Okay.
it was used as insulation, and it's real shiny and it kind of flakes apart. And vermiculite in itself is not bad, but some vermiculite has asbestos in it.
Mm.
And they just put it in the ceiling. I remember cutting into my first ceiling that had that, and it all just poured out on me. Well, the test came back hot. He was having exposure to asbestos, and I'm glad they caught it. But um, they need to be heard and they need to be listened to.
Right.
So that's number one. Um, another process and another approach is consistency and discipline. When you have a process and you learn the process, it creates consistency. And what I mean by consistency, I don't know how big your company is, but if you've got 10 technicians in the field saying 10 different things, offering 10 different solutions to get to one result, that creates chaos. If
Oh yeah.
everybody is saying the same thing, using the same process, and going in the same direction, we can have a very good outlook on what the outcome is going to be. That's managing outcomes. And so that's the importance of having a process, and discipline is huge in that. And working with the new flat rate, we're fully scripted. And Kenny, earlier you said, oh, you don't need to be fully scripted. Well, it's a process, and some people don't need to be, but people who are less refined, maybe they do, because they're just willy nilly saying whatever. And I've heard some doozies come out of technicians' mouths before. I'm like, where did that come from? I didn't say that in front of the customer, of course, but so
No,
being just
I just want to add there. It's not that I don't believe in a script. I'm saying sometimes people read it and they think they have to say everything that's on the script when in reality it's more of just like a map, to keep you on track. But they'll, a lot of times they'll say, oh, it's got to be word for word, or they think it has to be word for word. That's what I was going with that.
sure. And what we train is, especially for newer people, is learn it verbatim, learn it in the sequence it's supposed to. I want to hear you do it flawless, and then as you're comfortable with it, make it your own.
Exactly.
And so a process is a roadmap. And in the sales process, whether you're selling new equipment, it's a sales call or a comfort consult, or you're selling on a service call, or you're going to offer something on a maintenance call, it's still a process and it's a map. And in that map, I need to get from point A at the beginning of that call to point B to the end of the call. And so as you get comfortable with a script and you make it your own and you know it inside and out and you've got muscle memory, now it's time to step out of the script, make it conversational, make it your own. But remember, you're on a journey to get to point B. You need to step back into the map to get to where you need to go. If you're using navigation and you accidentally turn right when you're turning left, well, that's fine. You just need to get back and get back on that track to get to where you're going. So we'll talk a little more about that later. But the consistency and the discipline means a lot. And as you learn, so they say people who have consistency and discipline, they follow a well-structured sales process from prospecting to closing without skipping a step. And I'm going to dive into this deep as we're going to go ahead and build some processes and go through. I'm going to really dig into this one deep about skipping steps. And it's and I want to say to the audience too, as we're just kind of setting the table today and talking in broader terms, the next 3 weeks are really going to dig in, and I'm going to give you guys some real foundational stuff that you can take back to your own personal process or to your companies and have them work for you. So yeah, consistency and discipline. Proactive learning. And this holds true in just everything, even in life. Winners continuously improve their skills and knowledge, staying updated on industry trends and customer challenges. Now, this is not just in general, like watching what your competitors do. This is like, hey, you're going in, you're following a process, and you say something a certain way, and you get a reaction out of different customers that's not the reaction you want. Well, guess what? That's a learning experience. You need to massage it, change it, get rid of it or whatever. And even if it's a process that everybody's agreed on, once you get it out there and get it working, you'll learn. And so we have to constantly be learning. And then also customer trends. I've been hearing a lot lately about the sales process for Gen Z, Gen X, millennials a little bit. Millennials are still a little bit in the, but Gen Z, Gen X, and I don't know if you guys heard what the next gen is called, Gen Beta. So you got Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Beta is the next one. I think it's a 7-year run or 5-year. Gen Beta is next, and I've had like top marketing and sales. Oh, you can't sell to these people the same way you sell to their mom and dad or grandma and grandpa. I'm like, really? Yeah, they don't want to talk to anybody. They want to do it all on their phone. They buy their cars off of CarMax and have it delivered. I'm like, well, okay. And but if they're at home and something's broke, oh well, they'll let you in. And they don't want to talk to you. And I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, we're all human beings, and I think although there is something to the Gen X, Gen Z, and now Beta where they're a little disconnected because of social media and technology, but they're still human. They still have a heartbeat. They still got wants and needs. They still like to be heard, whether it's over a text, right? And so I don't think there's that much being given to that thought. Now, are there going to be a handful of people that want no contact? They want to do everything online. They want to pay you online. They want text message and all that. Well, sure. But I don't think we have a big industry shift and we all need to run out and learn how to do things totally different just for the handful of Gen Z, Gen X betas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you guys had any experience with some of the younger generation coming up and being like all in on tech? And I know you guys are a tech company, so you got to kind of stay at the forward edge of that.
So like for who we deal with, like obviously people running companies, they're not that young as far as like people that I've talked to and stuff like. It is a little bit different. They are definitely more tech focused. Even like my generation, like I'm 36. Like the millennials, like a lot of DoorDash, a lot of stuff like that. So they're just like there is less of that human component. However, like you said, when it comes down to it, like especially when it comes like to the industry niches and stuff like that, like there's got to be that human element because people are coming into your house. They're, you're meeting them, you're talking to them, explaining to them what it is that they need done, everything like that. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to text you a quote. It just doesn't work that way. But what you're saying, that what other people have said, it would sound that way. But I always tell people, if you give a quote over the phone, if you text a quote, if there's no personal experience there, you can kiss that lead goodbye. 100%. And I
Yeah,
and I can almost guarantee it that even in 10, 15 years when these kids grow up, it's still going to be the same way.
I think so too. I really do. And like I was saying earlier, things go in cycles. We talked about the door-to-door salesman and how that was in 1903, but hey, come back. There's guys knocking on doors again and they're having success with it. So,
Here's a good example to that. I was talking to a guy about, I think it was like beginning of December, and he was telling me that mailers were absolutely killing it for him in 2024. Absolutely killing it. And then a lot of people think, hey, mail's dead. According to this guy, it's not. Obviously, it's going to be different, area to area and stuff like that. But he had a huge influx of customers due to mail.
sure. I saw something about that just either today or yesterday as well. And it's such a low dollar investment.
Hmm.
And so it's easy to get your ROI back, especially if you're in a slow season. And I have a couple customers that I work clients that I work with, and when they're doing certain jobs, they put out yard signs. That's definitely, you have to do that, especially if you've got trucks in the driveway.
Yard signs are never going away. That I can tell you.
Yep. But what I've always done, and I promote to them, is like, if you're at a job and you're doing whatever it is you're doing, you take 3 minutes and you put a door hanger on 2 doors to the left, 2 doors to the right, and 3 across the street. That's all. You don't canvas the street. You go two, two, and three. That's 5 door hangers.
So I used to do that. We called it the clover leaf method.
There you go.
I used to do that, but what I would actually do, because we didn't have door hangers, so I would actually knock on the door. I'm not saying that you have to do that. If you have door hangers, however people want to do it, I don't care. But yeah, um, it's this sense of not necessarily keeping up with the Joneses, but more of like, well, I know Bob, and if Bob got service from them, that means, as long as it's not, the one neighbor that everybody's kind of like whatever about, but
Yeah, it's social proof,
yeah,
kind of.
yeah,
Yep.
that's really what it is. That
There.
method really, really, really does work actually, because I've gotten calls from that many times.
Me too. It does work.
And how much time does it cost to do it?
If you're
It,
doing
it
door hangers, what, 2 minutes?
and you've got a guy already there. It's not like you dispatched him just to do that. So there's
Right.
one gentleman, and this is freaking brilliant. Doesn't matter what season it is, but for instance, if he's doing a job in the month of October,
Mhm.
he gets little pumpkins and he has a stencil and puts all his information on it, and whatever, and then places them in the areas where he's working.
That's
And
a good
then
idea.
there's February, which is Valentine's Day, and then there's St. Patty's Day and Christmas, and he's killing it because people look at that and they chuckle and then they bring it in, and then it's like, you know what? Let's give this guy a call because I just, this isn't working, or for whatever it may be, and it works, and so you don't have to get all like super tech about it. Anyway, that was a great sideline on that.
I mean, it's bold, and people remember that. People remember stuff that stands out. There's a good book that I read years ago called The Purple Cow, and basically the premise of it was just be a purple cow in a sea of regular black and white cows. So
Right.
if you stand out, like,
Mhm.
people are going to remember that. We got one
Right.
guy, who's actually a client of ours. Well, I won't call him out or mention it, but he does something that has absolutely nothing to do with HVAC. But he has a mascot about, yeah, nothing to do with HVAC, and he has like, events and days revolving around this mascot. Ben knows who I'm talking about, and
Yeah.
uh, like, people remember it. Like, they
Yeah.
know who he is and who that guy is, but he's the purple cow in the sea of all the other HVAC normal cows.
It's like jingles. Man, they get in your brain. And it's hard, hard to
Yeah,
get
I
rid of
had
them.
one in my head today, which is funny you said that.
Yep. And so another thing that's important and part of a process is resilience. And again, we're touching on these things. We'll go into this a little deeper. Is they handle rejection with positivity, learning from it, and don't let it be a big setback, and just maintain your motivation. Some people just browbeat themselves to death because they didn't get a sale. And it's like, well, you know what? There's something, you're not going to get all the sales, but you should get a pretty good percentage if you have a good process, you communicate well. And so just being resilient is really important. And building relationships. It may be your very first cold call. They went in the yellow pages or however they found you. I know that's old school, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm that old. But they found you. They called you for the very first time, and so their stuff is broke. They need you. So that there's that when they called you. Oops, I touched my paper and almost turned off the screen. That would have been good. They called you. First time. Put your best foot forward. Build confidence. Build rapport, and you are starting a relationship. It can go one of two ways. It could be a one-off, and they could get it and go call the next guy the next time. You do them a good service, they'll remember you, and it could lead into a maintenance agreement, and it could lead into uh, possibly a comfort consult. But building that relationship, even if it's the very first person that called you for the very first time, that's the start of a relationship. I work with companies all over the place who's like, yeah, John, I've been going to this guy's house for 34 years. I know his kids, I know his grandkids, and they're growing up and graduating from high school, and pretty soon they're going to be my customer too. That's how important every single call you get is. Treat it like it's going to be your best friend, or a long lasting relationship, because it very well could be. So building relationships as part of your process is very important.
Business is all about relationships on every level.
Every level.
It's actually
Yeah.
fun.
And
Go ahead, go ahead.
guys forget about that.
Right.
I never
They
even
think it's
thought
just transactional.
I never even thought about that, because our old HVAC guy who did work on our furnace, everything like that, the other house, he was the guy for my great grandpa, and then my grandpa used him. He, or no, I'm sorry, grandpa, father, me. So 3 generations. I never even thought about that. He passed away, but yeah, because who do I call? Call him. Call John. Call John. Call John.
Right.
His name was John too. Yeah,
That's a beautiful thing.
it's
That's a
kind of crazy. I
beautiful
never even thought about
relationship.
that.
And then people will, when you have these relationships, people will move, and they're, you know what, they'll take you with them. And even better than that, they'll tell you, the people that are buying the house, hey, use this guy. His stickers on the unit, he's taken care of my stuff for years.
Right.
And so it just blossoms out from there. So here's something that's very, very important. Data driven. You analyze performance, you have different metrics, use KPIs, and you adjust accordingly.
Data's
If you
king.
need to adjust your billable hour, if you need to adjust what you're charging or your markup on parts, if you've been doing if you've been doing service calls in a certain area and you've not had good success, that's data. And so we need to be data driven. And then as a service technician who is a good diagnostician, they need to be data driven too, as they go in and take all the data from doing your diagnostics. The decision you make to present to that customer on your sales process needs to be driven by data, not rules of thumb, not guesses, needs to be data driven. And that keeps us all in line. It allows different people to look and kind of have a finger on the pulse as you look at data. You guys analyze data probably every which way from Sunday, right?
More than I like to admit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that being said, and especially with the new testing equipment that's coming out, I know this is not a technical show, but there's so much connectivity. Um, with like Measure Quick and Haven IAQ, where you're connected, Smart AC, where everything's connected and you're getting data sent to the office in real time. And so you can get lost into it. So knowing exactly what key points or KPI key performance indicators you need to look at to help you shift or make a decision or change things is important too. But you're going to start hearing a lot more about data integrity because you can have skewed data that you're making a decision about, and that would help you make a wrong decision. So having the right personnel that understand how to analyze the data, where it's coming from, what your KPIs are, and is there integrity to that data is important. And that's going to be across all spectrums in business. There's something to think about.
We say it all the time. Data's king. I knew that for years.
Yeah, but when you're using software, dumb data in equals dumb data out.
True.
Yeah, especially when you're
the right data is king.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. Oh no, I live and die by that. Especially working. You heard my clients. The decision I'm helping them make. Man, my data better be right because I'm about to help them make some decisions that are a lot of gravity.
Right.
So also part of that process is follow up. I don't know. I can't tell you how many companies from the technician from the call coming in, from dispatching a call to the technician to the follow up, there's a big disconnect there. Whether it's the communication, maybe maybe you don't have a CRM. Maybe you do have a CRM and you don't know how to put the information in so it gets to the right person. Follow up is crucial. Even if it's just a happy call is a follow up. You know what a happy call is, right? So you go out, you do a service, from someone from the office calls and say, hey, I just want to make sure that you had a good experience and that everything is working okay. I see that John was out there yesterday, as a matter of fact. How's everything working? How was your experience? That's a happy call. That's a follow up. Mm-hmm. Hey, you know what? Customer wasn't really ready to make a decision. They needed to talk to a husband or a significant other. That's another thing we'll talk about. That's kind of an objection, but not really. It could be legitimate, and I need to follow up. Well, guess what? The follow up never came, so they went with company C instead of you, and so follow up is crucial. And
everybody that's on this live, we've been talking a lot about follow-up. That's why we've been talking about RP1 and Chris so much, because what we've noticed and what I've noticed throughout all the years, and I'm sure you've noticed the same thing as well, being in this industry and whatever, is that a lot of people treat these leads coming in and these customers as kind of like one call closes. So, the call come in, they'll go out there, they'll give them a quote, whatever, and then never follow up with them again.
Yes, I heard some statistics. It's 20% of your company's workforce close 80% of the big ticket jobs. 80% of calls that aren't closed on the spot are usually closed on the third, fourth, or fifth try. Mm-hmm. And so staying with it, my little note here says winners know that persistence pays and follow up diligently without being overly aggressive. I always teach in my classes when you're communicating with a customer and you're getting a hard no, you can go ahead and massage that a little bit, but a hard no is a hard no, and you can take a crowbar to that. It ain't going to change. Let their yeses be
Right.
yes, and let their no's be no. And know the difference, and don't be overly aggressive because it may be no now, and you need to respect that. And if you do show respect to that, they may give you another shot at a different time.
Right, because no
We
might not be no right now. It just might be no. How, what is it? How does it say it? No doesn't mean no. It means not right now, or something like that.
Exactly.
sometimes, yep, sometimes, and we don't know
Or
what's
not
going
this
on.
situation.
Yeah,
Right.
Situational, yeah.
and you're
Like
talking
it's
about hard
time or
nose.
situation. Yeah.
You're talking about hard nose. The people that do sales, they'll know what a hard no is. Like,
Absolutely.
they'll know.
And then not being overly aggressive.
Right.
All right, so that kind of wraps up that part. And so we're up against the clock, man. That time went by quick here.
Yeah.
So customer centric approach. We need to put the customer first. Put your pride, put your ego aside. We have to have a servant's heart. What are we? A service company. You're going to serve your customer. And if you serve your customer well, you're going to have repeat business. Put the customer first. Not
Is what we always
revenue
say.
or not ticket sales or not padding the ticket or not the leaderboard. Put the customer first. That is a customer centric approach.
If you if you notice the companies that are more sales focused, um, they live fast, die fast. They can make a lot of money quick, but it's not going to be long term. It's not a sustainable
Right.
model.
Yeah,
The
It's
short
not a
people
game.
that are,
sustainable
yep,
business.
the people that are in there for the long haul, that care about their customers, that care about their clients and giving a good quality service, they're the ones that have been in business for, 75 years.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, before we close this out, let me give a little teaser because next week on Thursday, we're going to do this again. So tell your friends, uh, invite your mom and dad or your kids. It doesn't matter. Bring everybody. So here's some topics we're going to go over. How important it is knowing your numbers. You got to know your numbers. How much does it cost to put a truck in the driveway for the first hour? A lot of contractors don't know that. A simple way to figure out your billable hour per technician. Um, Four categories of business. Revenue and profits are not the same. So that's going to be kind of on the internal stuff and some like business 101. We're going to talk about some formulas and different things, and then we'll take it from there.
Cool. And then what we'll do, what you just said there for next week, we'll put we'll put all that stuff in the comments so people know what they can look forward to for next week. And we we were talking about, I'll tell everybody that's watching, we were talking about it, whether we should do comments with questions or whether we should have a full panel on. Um, Maybe we could go to a full panel. I don't know. I don't know how it would look, but we'll get people's opinions on that. And we can kind of play
I've
it
done
by
it
ear.
both ways. It works.
We can play it by ear and how
Right.
that goes. But I wouldn't mind getting other people on here if they want to ask questions or raise their hand or whatever. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I think this is good. I think this laid out a really good, solid foundation. And I know, knowing you and what we talked about, I know we got a lot more to go through, and I'm excited for that. So this is good, and I appreciate it. So
Right.
thank you.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
I also appreciate it. Thank you for hopping on, John.
All right, thanks.
All right, guys. Thank
See ya.
you. See you. Bye.